everyone, and welcome to today's Law Careers Super Fair, and in particular to the Government and Public Services focus session. My name's Sam, and I'm from Prospel, where we're helping to put on today's event. Before we go any further, I would like to acknowledge and pay respects to the traditional custodians of the land. For me, here in the city of Melbourne, that is the Wurundjeri and the Boonwurrung peoples. I'd also like to pay respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. I'd also like to quickly thank the event sponsors for today, College of Law, who without their assistance, this event wouldn't have been possible. If any of you have questions about admission to practice law and the like, they actually do have a booth at the event after this focus session is over. I would encourage you to go ask your questions there to their team. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our panel today, and I'm quickly swap to gallery view so you can hopefully see everyone. And with me today, I've got Narelle and Danica from the Attorney General's Department. I've got Alexandra Nielsen from Services Australia, and finally Mark from the Australian Tax Office. I might first throw to Narelle to do a quick introduction to Attorney General's Department and yourself, and then maybe throw to Danica to do a bit of an intro as well.
Thanks, Sam. I'm just checking to make sure you can hear me.
Yep, that's a little bit closer, I think, and then we'll.
Alrighty.
Yeah, that's good. Yep, perfect.
That good? Okay. Yep. Well, welcome to everybody, and I would also like to pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land that we're meeting on today, which is the Ngunnawal people here in Canberra, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So thanks, Sam, for that introduction and for the opportunity today to kind of talk about the graduate program that the Attorney General's Department runs. Look, for introduction, I commenced in the APS as a graduate just over 3 years ago, actually. I started with a Bachelor of Honours degree, and look, working in the APS has given me the opportunity to experience a range of roles and work environments over that time, and certainly had the opportunity to do further study and to work in the area which is where I am now based, across 8 different agencies. So it's a big employer, and it's also one that's filled with diverse agencies. So that's some of the benefits of working in the APS more generally. Before I go on to talk about the Attorney General's Department, I'd like to introduce Danica, who is one of our legal practice graduates in the department.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Danica. I'm a lawyer at the Australian Government Solicitor, which is part of the Attorney General's Employment Program. I started this year in the graduate rotation, and I came from UWA in Perth. I worked for 2 years before joining the grad program, so I came from management consulting back into law, and yeah, very keen to answer any questions and provide some feedback on what I think a good grad hopefully would be. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Thanks.
Before we move on, it'd be good to get a bit of a, so Narelle, from the Attorney General's Department, and then Danica, you said from Australian Government Solicitor. Maybe you could do a bit of a quick who the Attorney General Department is, who Australian Government Solicitor is, and how that sort of interacts.
Yep, no worries. So the Attorney General Department is the department, and the Australian Government Solicitor Group is one of the 5 groups that are in the department. So the purpose of the department is to deliver programs and policies to maintain and improve Australia's law and justice framework, as well as to deliver and improve, facilitate jobs growth through policies and programs that make our workplaces safe. The Australian Government Solicitor's role is also to provide legal services to the Commonwealth, and they do that on a commercial basis, on a cost recovery basis. So they also provide legal advice and representation. So we have a broad range of responsibilities in that legal policy and advice area, including legal justice, family law and legal assistance, criminal justice, international law, native title, workplace relations, and the list goes on.
Fantastic.
So
a lot, in short.
Yep.
Yeah.
Quite a lot.
Yeah. Danica, do you have anything to add, or good summary?
No.
Yep. Perfect.
Perfect. I think that the range is really diverse, so that's definitely a big ticket item here at AG's.
Awesome. Alexandra, I might throw to you next. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and also what Services Australia does?
Sure. So I joined Services Australia as a legal graduate last year, and the legal graduate program goes over 2 years. So I'm currently in my third rotation with the business transformation legal team, and previously I was in the employment law team and the freedom of information team. There's 6 practice areas. And Service Australia as a whole is an operational agency, and we deliver Centrelink, Medicare and childcare benefits and support to the Australian public.
Fantastic. Thanks, Alexandra. Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself and the ATO. Hold on, might be.
Sorry, just unmuting. Okay. Welcome, everybody. On behalf of the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting here in Brisbane, that's the Jagera and Turrbal people, welcome. Hope you enjoy this session as we progress. Australian Taxation Office, I've been here since last century. I'm one of the long-standing staff members, but I've fallen into probably the best position in helping to guide and mentor graduates and undergraduates and through our various programs, and we do have a wide range of them apart from graduates. One that's also very interesting is our university partnership employment program. So even before you start in a graduate program, you can try the ATO on a part-time basis while you're still completing your degree and studies. So find out whether it's the right fit for you first. The ATO obviously is the chief administrator for the tax legislation and superannuation system in Australia. As part of the Australian Business Register, we've also recently acquired some of the former functions of ASIC. So we'll be taking a greater role, and there's a great synergy between the Tax Office and Treasury and Attorney General's Department. Unfortunately, if we get to the pointy end, we have the Commonwealth prosecutorial arm that will turn around and take those non-believers in tax through the court system. So there's a very wide and varied career opportunity available for any law graduates that join the Australian Taxation Office.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mark. Now I reckon we'll jump into some more meatier questions. I've got a couple handy that I'm going to ask you all, but for any of our attendees who are on the call today, feel free to get your own in if you have any. Please put them into the Q&A part of the webinar, because it's just a bit easier to manage the questions as they're coming through, and I'll make sure we can try and address as many as possible. But I'm going to start with a question back at you, Mark. What is the most important piece of advice you'd give students aspiring to work for the ATO, or even just more broadly within the public service?
I think be willing to take on the challenge of the unexpected. The government and all agencies are responsible and act on behalf of the requests from government. So it can be a very moving and movable feast at times. Last year we saw COVID impact the wider community at large, and for the office here in particular, it was a matter of adapting for some of the policies and procedure of government at very short notice. So graduates were moved from normal rotations into what was effectively emergency work in terms of the stimulus measures that were put into place, which probably stretched people out of their comfort zone. But that experience, I think, is really important. Any of the work that you do for government is really about supporting the wider Australian community. And if that is where your aspirational ethos lies, then you've found the perfect venue and the opportunity to develop a career.
Fantastic. Same question, I think, for Alexandra. most important piece of advice you'd give to a student aspiring to work within Services Australia, and maybe from a more of a graduate slant, particularly? Anything they should know?
Sure. Following on, I guess, a little bit from what Mark said, expecting the unexpected, I think is good, and putting your hand up to do as much as possible. I'd say getting involved in the community is really good. This can be done through volunteer experience or just work experience, day-to-day work. Client experience is super important because in particular with Service Australia, we do so much client-facing work. So demonstrating a strong connection with the community, the ability to interact with lots of different types of people from different backgrounds will reflect really well on you.
How did you do that? Out of interest, Alexandra. Throw it back at you. In your application process, particularly.
Well, I got involved in a lot of different things while I was a student, both within university as well as volunteering. I did a number of different sort of volunteer activities at the university. A bunch of my friends and I, we created a charity called the Deluminators, ran that for a few years. So I think that was something that probably reflected as well as just getting involved in various types of different legal work that had a community-based focus.
Awesome. Same question again, but I'm going to throw it to Danica. Any advice you would give students who are looking to work within the public service, but particularly within the Australian Government Solicitor? It's a bit different to some other departments, obviously.
It is, yeah, and I think the key difference there is that it's often that the government itself is our client. So you're working with people that have the same aspirations as we've mentioned before, but you're also looking to do it on a cost-friendly basis and to make sure that we're providing really relevant, useful advice on a really timely basis. So on that note, I would probably echo what Alexandra has said before, which is get involved with obviously getting experience in the community, but more so where you can work with clients and learn how you speak to people that are both your clients and also working within the same team as you, because I think that really develops a sense of professionalism, that it's kind of just one of those soft skills that you develop with time and with practice. And so when you're in the interview or you're in the mock, client meeting, you've kind of got those soft skills that you can fall back on and kind of show that you've got what it takes to work in a really client-based environment.
Is there anything you did? I know you said you were in management consulting before this, and not everyone will go straight from one industry to another. Was there anything you did maybe even prior to management consulting to really develop those skills?
Definitely. So I did my PLT at a community legal centre that actually worked with people that were mentally ill and represented them in criminal kind of trials. And so that in particular really threw me in the deep end of what it means to work with clients, especially vulnerable clients, and how you speak to people and how to use plain English and how to be really direct when you speak and give advice. So I would highly, highly recommend if the law students out there are not already looking at it, volunteering at CLCs and getting some experience that way.
Awesome. Narelle, I'm going to pull you back in. But for a different question, what is it that Attorney General looks for in an application? And is there anything students need to do to really progress to the next round?
Thanks, Sam. So in terms of our application stages, or the recruitment stages.
It was just a bit quiet, Narelle. Sorry. Do you want to?
Sorry.
There we go. Yeah.
So in terms of the recruitment stages that we're expecting people to progress through, the first stage of the assessment is an online assessment. So this is testing people's problem-solving skills. So that's pretty much how they respond to that online test. The second stage is where we'll assess your application and your answers to the application questions that we've posed in the form. And this is really your first introduction to us. So this is your opportunity to kind of really provide us with a clear picture about why you would like to work in the department and the APS more broadly, as well as getting to and relating your experience and your skills to whatever stream you're applying for. So we have a number of streams that we offer, including the legal practice and also an industrial relations legal stream. So there's a couple of opportunities for people who really want to work in that legal sphere. And it's about really tailoring your answers to those questions to kind of bring out your skills and experience and what's motivating you and where you see your career going. So that would be my kind of suggestion in terms of really thinking about it and tailoring your answers accordingly.
Same question for Mark, I think, and thanks, Narelle. In terms of anything that the ATO looks for in an application, and is there anything students need to do to progress to the next round?
I think realistically, the comment about volunteering, I know that there's a comment or a question there from Cheryl asking about, you know, does volunteering need to be with government? No, it doesn't. I think general community volunteering shows a connection with the ability to serve or to provide support for organisations. And those are the types of, if you like, soft skills that all agencies are looking for. The ability to work as part of a team, to think, I say outside of the box, but really you shouldn't be thinking inside a box in the first place. There should be no box. So anything that you can do in terms of that volunteering brings an additional skill to you, because it may be that you're dealing with, as was previously mentioned, people within the neurodiverse community. So people that do have some form of disadvantage through neurodiversity. The organisations that the government now represent, or that represent the government, I should say, are really encompassing that broader concept of everybody can add value to an organisation. So the experience that you bring is really, really important. If you look at the lowest common denominator, everybody's got a degree, but we need to look beyond just the degree, and it's those soft skills that you've developed through volunteering, through previous work experience. The next question I know to come up is, I haven't worked outside before, I don't have work experience. You know, even stuff like working at Coles or the supermarket, where you've had to deal with customers that may have been aggressive, how you dealt with those situations. Those soft skills are still transferable and they're still required in agencies.
Very well put. I'm going to throw to some of the audience questions now. And I'm going to pick on you, Alexandra, because there's one directly for you from Miranda, which is, what tasks did you do as part of the employment law team at Services Australia?
Yes, the employment law team was actually a really, really good rotation where you get to do lots of interesting different things. So one big thing that the team does is handle unfair dismissal applications from the Fair Work Ombudsman. So if someone was terminated, they can make a complaint, and we represent Services Australia in that. Also longer hand advice writing for like prospects advice in terms of risks of terminating someone, as well as more general questions. I know the team did a lot of advice surrounding like COVID-19, when that was really big, work from home arrangements, as well as we get things come through from the Australian Human Rights Commission, whether that be a complaint from a customer that's been made to them, and that will come through to us and they'll ask us for a response. So we get to work on things like that as well. So really interesting, varied experience that I think is quite relevant. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to throw next to, who am I throwing next to? I'm throwing next to Mark. There's a question here from Zoe about, you know, ATO's applications have just closed. Do you have any idea on when students might be able to hear back? And I also would like you to answer, following up from that, Jess's question about locations that ATO offers roles. If that's okay.
Absolutely.
2 questions for you.
Okay, so the simple one for Jess, no, the ATO is one of those far-flung agencies where we have 13 different sites around the country. You can be in places like Albury, Dandenong, Gosford, Wollongong, Adelaide, Perth, Brisbane, etc. Hobart. So there's a lot of opportunity. That also means that in your career progression, you can move interstate as well, potentially. The first one, the first part of that question then about our applications have already closed. Thank you to I think it's 3,718 applicants that have applied directly for the ATO. We've then got another 1,000 or so through HR and our other specialist streams. So it will be a while before we've gone through that preliminary process. We expect to have, that sounds terrible to say our first cull, but our first round of interviews or opportunities for the first phase of the process to commence round about the end of next month. So roughly 6 weeks from now.
Similar timeframe for Attorney Generals, Narelle, around that? Because I know yours has still got another couple of days, if I've got that correct.
No, they first day.
So there you go.
1 minute. So,
Oh.
anybody
Oops, sorry, I just can't. Can you spin the?
please. No.
Sorry.
So please get it. No, you're right. Please get in and submit them because they do close tonight. In terms of the time frame, we do take candidates through a number of stages. We will be holding assessment centres from mid-June through to for about a month. And then we will kind of let people know the outcome of the assessment process probably in early August. So it does take a little while to get through the various stages of the process.
Yeah. Alexandra, I'm not sure if you know that for Services Australia, but if not, should they talk to the booth later after this?
You can talk to the booth. They're currently open until 11:30 p.m. on the 19th, so Monday. So yeah, if you haven't put your applications in yet, do that this weekend.
Perfect. And if you had any questions about the timelines for Service Australia as well, I would encourage you to go chat to the Service Australia booth after this focus session. Awesome. I think that's two in one there. I'm gonna answer next George's question, which was, to those who have been through the grad program at your respective departments, and more importantly, have had to move to Canberra, how was that transition? Danica, do you want to go first? Looks like you've been thrown under the bus there. Moved to Canberra.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So I moved from Perth, and yeah, it's been a bit of a big change. I think leaving your very ingrained support systems that you've maybe got at home is a little bit difficult. But I would say that like bringing yourself here and doing something completely out of your comfort zone is one of the most formative things that you can probably do. It teaches you a lot about yourself and what it kind of gives you a lot of resilience that I think you can apply then at work as well. So I wouldn't say that it was the easiest decision. And I'm certainly losing a lot of money buying flights back to Perth, but I reckon it is 100% worth it. And if that's something that someone is maybe a bit tentative about, I would just say throw caution to the wind. And Canberra is a beautiful place to live. Just don't look at the weather forecasts for this week because I'm told it was not reflective. So yeah, it's definitely something that I would say don't worry too much about.
Alexandra, did you have to move as well?
Yeah, I relocated from Sydney. My experience was probably a bit different to the typical experience because we basically moved just before everything locked down with COVID. But just reflecting on what Danica said, I think definitely it's a good move. I really enjoy Canberra. It is a big move. but there's lots to do and lots to see. If you're getting involved in a graduate program, particularly once the government, you should have a lot of people on the same boat as you. So make sure you make those connections, make those friends, and build your community in Canberra. If you're moving down from Sydney like I did, try not to go back to Sydney every weekend. I know like I'm assuming all your family or your friends will be there, but try and establish yourself in Canberra as well, and not live half, you know, so that would be my advice.
Awesome. I might ask a general, I'm going to tackle one more audience question. I've got a couple more of my own. So if we haven't covered your questions, don't worry, there's a further chance to ask the team this in your individual booths, but I'm going to have a bit of an open slather. There's a question here from Alexandra about international law experts. About to complete a PhD in international law. Do any of your respective departments have any opportunities within international law? Potentially, Mark's got his hand raised. I'll throw to Mark first.
I thought I'd get in quick on that one. Yeah, no, we do have opportunities for international law, because with transfer pricing and a lot of the work that goes on with audit investigation, I don't know if you've ever heard of things like the Panama Papers, all of those types of activities that involve international transactions. We have regular secondments to the OECD in Brussels. So those sorts of opportunities do arise from time to time, and the graduates are exposed to that work as part of their rotations.
Narelle, I reckon Attorney Generals might have some.
Yes, so we have a couple of areas that do have international law content that they deal with. We have the Office of International Law, which deals with providing advice on a whole range of international matters. You know, some of the kinds of matters that the department deals with is extradition, providing support for people overseas who are needing legal advice. So yeah, and yeah, a whole range of matters in terms of trafficking, you know, child trafficking, and a whole range of kind of different varied types of issues that the department would provide advice on. So yeah,
fantastic.
There's certainly plenty meaty work to do in that space. Yes.
Yep. I'm going to throw my second last question to the grads again. I'll start with Danica again, I reckon. Danica, sorry. For students who land a job with you within, you know, Attorney General's Department or within the Australian Government Solicitor, what advice would you give them to help them survive and thrive in their first year? And is there anything they shouldn't do that maybe you did, but or didn't do? Yeah.
I mean, it's been about 3 months, so hopefully, you know, I can kind of extrapolate, but also from, you know, when I was a grad in my previous job, I think the main message I would give is get out of your own head. I know law school is very insular and we're all very focused on our marks and what clerkships we're doing and our assignments, but I think the best piece of advice I would have is just to not take yourself too seriously. If you have a question, just ask it. If you spend 5 hours doing an advice about the wrong case, then that's really not going to help anyone. But if you just kind of get up off your seat and go knock on someone's door, as terrifying as that is, and just ask them to clarify your understanding or to confirm that you're on the right track, it will save you so much stress and it will save your supervisor so much stress. So anything that you can do to kind of just laugh things off and make sure that you're just really open and honest. And if you don't know something, just say it. Yeah, don't take yourself too seriously. That's my big ticket advice, which is easier said than done.
Alexandra, same question. Any advice for their first year and anything they shouldn't do?
Yeah, sort of in the same vein, get involved as much as possible. Put your hand out for everything that you can. Not only this will mean you're working on your work skills, but it also will mean that you're supervisor or your colleagues are more likely going to pull you on to different things over other people if you're enthusiastic. And the same thing, just ask questions. Don't sit on work that you don't know how to do. Your supervisor will really like that you're asking questions. It shows that you're thinking critically about the task. They know that you're new, you might not have a lot of experience, so it's totally fine to ask questions. They expect that, they want that. So definitely, yeah, ask as many questions as you want. Don't be afraid.
Awesome. Final question for everyone. And I'm going to throw to Mark first. In one sentence, why should students apply to the ATO program or accept the role within the ATO?
The opportunity to have a long and varied career in the ATO. I've got former grads that are now assistant commissioners and directors of departments, and they've never left Brisbane.
Alexandra, same question. One sentence, why should students apply to Services Australia?
Apply for the varied experience, the opportunity to work with really knowledgeable lawyers, and to be able to do good work in the Commonwealth.
And Narelle and Danica, I'm not sure which one of you want to take it. Maybe both can have a crack. One sentence, why should they apply for Attorney General's Department?
I think it's along the same lines. Look, we offer a diverse range of experiences. We operate in the national interest, and those experiences will help develop your skills and support a rewarding career.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Actually, I think we will give a plug to Australian Government Solicitor. Danica, one sentence. Why should they apply for the Australian Government Solicitor?
I'm sorry, I feel like I've corrupted the Attorney General's portion. I think, well, it's the same, you know, we're all part of the same body, so that's all good. I would say that AGS is a really unique hybrid between working in a private sector type firm, which is that, you know, you're working on billable matters, you mark every 6 minutes that you work, and you're kind of under those same, you get the same experiences that you would in those firms that, you know, stretch opportunities, as they would say, but you're also kind of doing it for the positive influence that you've got in the community that is part of the broader AGD, I suppose, ethos. So I think it's the best of both worlds, but maybe I'm biased.
Fantastic. Well, thanks to all of our panelists for today's event.